In this video, we will show you how to replace your AC condenser on this Toyota Sienna. This will be located behind your front grille. Let's get into it. A quick note before we get started on the AC condenser, you need to have a professional properly evacuate the AC system refrigerant. Let's start removing our front grille. To remove the grille, you're going to find that you have several push clips making their way all the way across. There should be 6 of them out in the open. Push clips come in different shapes and sizes, but if they're the locking type, you need to carefully remove the center just enough that it unlocks the outer portion and you can lift the entire thing up and out of place. A quick inspection of each of the push clips as you continue, replace them as necessary. There should be one here. Ours is missing. Once again, missing in the center here. Keep making our way across. With all 6 of those push clips out of place, take hold of the grille, generally along one side or the other, and we'll just start pulling this away from the vehicle. A quick inspection of this and we'll set it aside. With the grille out of the way, we have to remove this upper radiator support making its way all the way across. So there are several things we'll have to dislodge, starting with the horns. To remove your horns, you'll find that you have a 12mm bolt holding each of them in place. While removing these, we'll make sure we hold onto the horn so it doesn't fall off. A quick inspection of your horns, and we'll just set those aside. If you want to, you could use a cloth across the front of your bumper cover. With the horns out of the way, we'll remain focusing in the center here. We're going to start dislodging the hood latch assembly from this portion of the radiator support. Before we start removing any of the hardware, it's a good idea to mark exactly where that hood latch was sitting on the radiator support. You can use pretty much anything for this. We just want to make sure we know exactly where it goes for the reinstallation process. Now, once that's marked, we'll pause on the mounting bolts and follow this wiring harness down to the connector. Squeeze that locking tab and disconnect this. A quick inspection for corrosion, and you can set that wiring harness aside. Next, we'll start removing our 3 10mm headed mounting bolts that hold this in place. Sometimes there'll be a small plastic protective cover over this one. Now we can lift this up. We'll follow that hood release cable underneath this area, and you can see a mounting point out in the open along the front. For this, it does have some locking tabs. You just want to squeeze those in. You can use your fingers or some pliers if necessary. Once you're squeezing them, you should be able to pull it through. That just dislodged. That should be attached. So this just goes right on there. Now we can take this entire thing and we'll just hang it off to the side towards the driver's side of the vehicle. With that out of the way, it exposes another 10mm headed mounting bolt. This one would be located just behind that hood latch assembly. Now, moving from here, we're going to start removing the air inlet tube, which leads to the air filter box. In this area, you're going to find that you have 2 rubber hoses that make their way down along the driver's side of the inlet tube. We're just going to separate those from their locking clips. For these, you can generally just pull them right out of position. A quick inspection as you continue down the line. Get this one down in here. Same thing, just go ahead and slide it right on out. Now we'll make our way back out to the radiator support. We have 2 10mm headed mounting bolts to remove. Now we should be able to take hold of this. We're going to lift it up, but we're also going to have to pull it away from the air filter box. Just give this a little twist. Set it aside. Now we can start removing the radiator support from across this area. It's held in place with several 10mm headed bolts, 2 on each side. Now we'll take hold of this, we're going to give it a wiggle and lift it straight up and off of here, and we can set it aside. Now we can start removing the AC lines from the condenser. I'll say once again, before you remove any lines for your AC system, you need to have a professional evacuate your AC refrigerant. Now you can see one line right up here. The other one's located all the way down along the bottom on the passenger side. We'll start with the bottom line. Keep in mind there could still be some pressure or even vacuum in the system. We have our 10mm bolt holding that in. Got my 10mm ratcheting wrench. All right, that bolt broke off. That's okay, we'll just replace it. Now we'll start removing the line from the AC condenser after you have that bolt out. If it's stuck in place, you just want to be careful not to damage the line itself, otherwise you will have to replace it. There we are. A quick inspection of the AC line. We'll set this one aside temporarily, make our way to the upper mounting bolt. Same process. Remove your 10mm, remove the line from the AC condenser. Quite a bit of corrosion on that. We'll have to make sure we clean it up, give it a thorough inspection. If it does have to be replaced, of course we're going to replace it. The bolt's out of there. We'll give this a wiggle and separate it. Once again, a quick inspection of the line. Set it aside. Now we'll start removing the hardware that holds the AC condenser to your radiator. You'll find up along the top of the AC condenser, you have two 10mm headed mounting bolts, and each one of those bolts also has a plastic bracket holding the AC condenser. Go ahead and remove that. Now with the bolt out of there, we can grab onto the bracket. We'll pull it away from the radiator. And now you need to give that bracket a thorough inspection. If it looks like it's cracked or damaged, you need to go ahead and replace it. This one, we'll set it aside. Now we'll do the same to the other one. Pull that out of place. Now we can start removing the AC condenser. Go ahead and take hold of that AC condenser, pull it towards the front of the vehicle. You're going to hit up against this bracket. We need to have just enough room from that radiator, so as we're pulling this up, we will not cause any damage to the radiator. There it is, friend. While we have the AC condenser out of the vehicle, the next thing we're going to do is pay attention to the mounting points where the lower portion of the AC condenser would fit in. You can see those down along the bottom of the radiator. We have one over on the driver's side here, and the same exact thing on the opposite side over on the passenger side of the vehicle. Now that we've inspected both of those mounting points, we'll continue on to the lines. We need to clean and inspect those. What you're going to notice on each one of the lines is you have an O-ring. We'll remove the O-rings, clean the line, and reinstall a brand new O-ring. To do this, you can use a pick or small screwdriver, whatever you might happen to have. We'll just pry it right out of place. Be careful not to damage your lines in any way. There's that O-ring. We'll compare it to our new one. Set that aside. It's important to make sure that you thoroughly clean and inspect the line, especially inside the groove where your brand new O-ring gasket will sit. Once you've done that, continue on with your brand new O-ring. We've got one that matched up with the original. Just slide it right into that position, right inside that groove. At this point, we'll pause on this line and repeat the same process for the next line. That's the lower line here. As you can tell, this line is much smaller, so is the O-ring. There's our O-ring gasket. Just a quick inspection, we'll set that aside. Just clean that line. Now I've got my smaller O-ring, nice brand new one here. This one's a little bit more difficult to slide into place because it's small, and of course I've got glove fingers, but we'll just slide it right on there. Since this one's so small, I'll be using a pick to help it in place. You just want to be careful not to damage it in any way. If it looks like it's ripped at all, just go ahead and replace it. Before we install these into the AC condenser, we're going to add clean PAG oil to each one of them to help lubricate them. I always like to wait on adding that until after we have the AC condenser in place so no miscellaneous debris falls on the O-rings once they are lubricated. Let's prepare our brand new AC condenser for installation. What I mean by that is we're going to have to add 1 ounce of clean PAG oil to the AC condenser. When I do this, typically I like to go through the top port. With that said, we'll go ahead and remove that protective boot and continue with 1 ounce of clean PAG oil, as I had mentioned. When doing this, we'll just use a measuring cup so we're sure we use the proper amount. Okay, I've got about 1 ounce in here. Let's carefully start putting it into the AC condenser. Temporarily reinstall your protective plug, and now we can get back over to the vehicle. As we start bringing the AC condenser in, we're going to have to make our way in between this bracket and the radiator. Once again, we're being extremely careful not to cause any damage to that radiator. Bring it down nice and easy. This isn't a race. I can see my mounting points down here. Looks like I'm a little off. I'm just going to slide it over as needed. And it rests right into the proper position. Now with this rested in down along the bottom, we're going to be paying attention along the top of the AC condenser where it connects to your radiator. We had those 2 plastic brackets and 2 10mm bolts. We're going to get these in place. When installing these brackets, we're going to take this center rubber and push it right down in the center of that AC condenser. We'll rest that one there. Do the same on the opposite side. It's important to get these brackets in place before you press it up against that radiator, otherwise you won't be able to get it lined up properly. Once you do have both of them on there, we'll continue on to pressing it up against the radiator, install those 10mm headed mounting bolts. We'll snug these up and then torque them to 53 inch-pounds. Once you've torqued both of those, go ahead and make sure that the AC condenser is properly secured to the radiator. And now it's time for our 2 AC lines, starting with the bottom line. As I mentioned before, you need to make sure that you lubricate each of the O-rings, 1 on each of the lines, and you're only using clean PAG oil for this. We'll use a glove finger so we can make sure we get it directly on there. We don't want to make too much of a mess. At this point, we'll go ahead and remove the plug from along the bottom of the AC condenser. We don't need that there anymore. Take that line and we'll get it in position and start in the mounting bolt. We're just twisting and pressing as needed here. Before you put in the mounting bolt, you need to ensure that you're completely bottomed out. If it's sticking out a little bit and you put in the bolt and tighten it, you might twist the line and cause damage. I've got my 10mm headed mounting bolt. Make sure you start each of these in by hand. Once it's started in, you can go ahead and snug it up. Now that we have that snug, we'll be torquing this to 48 inch-pounds. That's torqued. Let's make our way to the upper line. Same process. The torque for this is 48 inch-pounds as well. Now it's time for the upper radiator support. We'll have a quick look along the bottom. On each side, you're going to have a circular port for the rubber mount along the top of the radiator. We'll flip this down, align those, and also our mounting bolt holes. Get this on there. Now once that's in the proper position as far as the radiator is concerned, we'll make sure we got our mounting bolts started in. You have 2 on each side of this. Once those are started, go ahead and snug them up. Let's make our way along the front of the radiator support. Going to install our 10mm headed bolt. Start it in by hand, of course. Snug it up. Now it's time for our hood latch. We'll make sure we have this in the proper position. Before we mount it to the vehicle, we'll make sure we have the hood cable in and behind this area. You can see my finger through this hole. That's where we want to have this plastic clip. Just bring it right up in there. Press it in, give it a little wiggle, and make sure it's secured, locked in properly. We can bring this over. Now when you go to install this, you want to make sure that you have the latch assembly make its way in and behind this area. Now we can start in all 3 of our 10mm headed mounting bolts. The 2 up along the top look the same. The lower one is the one that I had mentioned does have that plastic cap that should go over it. Ours was missing. Start that right in there. Now, before we tighten this, we need to pay attention to our markings. If we were to tighten it exactly where it lies, the hood might not sit where it needs to. Once you have it aligned in position, go ahead and tighten up each of those mounting bolts. We're just checking to make sure it's aligned as we continue. Now it's time for that wiring harness down along the bottom area there. Press it in, listen for a click, make sure it's secure. Continuing in this area, it's time for our 2 horns. We'll start in our 12mm headed mounting bolts. Snug them up. Now it's time for the air inlet tube. Just bring this down into position. We're going to align it with the air filter housing. Press that straight towards the engine. Align your 2 mounting holes, and we'll start in our 2 10mm mounting bolts. Snug them up. Now it's time for our 2 hoses. Press those into their positions. Got one up here, one right there, one just down alongside the battery. Double check those hoses to make sure they're secured all the way up. Now it's time to install the grill assembly. Along the bottom here, you will have several locating tabs. Those locating tabs will fit along this area of the front bumper cover. We'll get this in position and slide it rearward towards the engine. Carefully pressing it in. There we are. Now we'll focus up along the top. We had 6 push clips that made their way across. Start them in, press them down. Okay, friend, we finished the installation of our AC condenser. At this point, you need to have a professional recharge your AC refrigerant. After that, go ahead and take your vehicle for a road test and test the functionality. Thanks for watching.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.